Hi, howdy. So today I'm drawing Canada, as you can see from my enthusiasm. Um, so basically all drawing is, especially in anime styles, it's basic shapes. You can see I started with the head, and obviously I'm not satisfied with it, so I draw it again. Also ignore the dupes. Discord's in the background. So you do basic shapes. With guys, it'll be more square shape up top, and with girls, you can either use circles or you can use a more rounded square, and then you'll do the chest piece and the bottom piece bigger, and then bring the sides in. With males, you do more of a triangle, which obviously this is a male character. So lines, the basic lines are just guidelines, and I always typically choose some color that's like absurdly bright and neon that I'm never going to use. So once I do that, I will move on, and I will, after I got the base done, I will do the clothes around it, because I always find that easier to do. Here's the pose, and then here's the clothes, because they're full and stuff, and I don't always follow exactly the guideline. Like you can see I did a foot, and then I was like, I hate this, and then I redid it, and it still doesn't match exactly. Hands and feet are always whack. Just really weird. And I do go back and forth here of like, do it like this and do this like this, because I was like, I started to draw the regular elbow, and I knew I wanted to do like the cloth draped. And here, me checking reference photos. Reference photos are not cheating. The light orange is just guidelines, so I can figure out, where should the eyes, the mouth, and the nose be positioned, and you will see me go back and forth and decide. And obviously that was I copied the one, and I went and then just mirrored it, and then moved it to the right place. But reference photos aren't cheating. They aren't. They're references. It wouldn't be cheating unless you, like, literally put in the image and drew over top of it. So, for reference for ears, they're always going to go from, like, the middle of your eye to about the bottom of your nose. And I typically, when I do eyebrows, I do little circles, and then I do the shape. And you'll see me, like, mess with the nose 5 billion times, and all of my little comments. A lot of art is just messing around until you're satisfied with it. And I did end up satisfied with the piece for the most part. Like, there's little things, but when it's your own art, you're always going to be nitpicky with yourself. And there is a difference between having moments where you're, like, looking at it and you're like, I know I can do better. That's the moments when you have a full right to be a little aggravated when you say that. That you're like, this piece is hot garbage. Like, it's not hot garbage, but you say that, and someone else is like, immediately like, how dare you besmirch yourself, and you're like, calm down. There's a difference between that and you just going, this is hot garbage, because you don't have confidence in yourself. That second one, no. You're doing good, art is for all skill levels, and you should never ever put someone down for their art, and you should never put someone else down for their art. Constructive criticism is just that. It is constructive, like, hey, I think you could do this better, or it's not going, I think you could do everything better. So you see now I'm going in and I'm doing the black outlines, because I do a base outline in a absurd color, and I'm figuring out the chest and adding detailing. But I do base outline and then I go over in the black outline, and some people do solid colors and like a solid black outline like I do, or some people blur it, some people don't have one at all. But because I sidelined myself, I'll go back. I'll also mention I totally realize eventually in here that I completely forgot to do hands. Is you shouldn't be put down for your art ever, and you shouldn't compare people like, oh, it's okay, but this person's way better, because that stuff stays with you. Like, even if you're the best artist in the world, you will always probably compare yourself to some other artist, like, I can't do this. So, now that I've done my mini rant, I will mention hands and the wrist. So, obviously, I don't like the wrist here, and I play around with the hands forever, trying to figure out, because usually if you make a mistake, you can do it, you can leave it and just be unsatisfied with it, or you can cover it up. It's no big deal. Like, someone who can't draw hands might always draw the arms behind the back. I did that for the longest time. So, with hands, I know they're a pain in the butt, and it takes forever to figure them out. But, see, I kind of derped here, in which female hands are a little more dainty and the kind of pointy-ended, where male hands will be a little more square and bulky. That's just how they are. There's always going to be a difference between male characters and female characters. And, you know, there's, of course, body types and everything in between. Just remember, everyone has their style, and this just happens to be mine. So I play around with curl a bit. I don't end up liking it. It's too much. So I take a step back here, and I get rid of all the background noise, and then I'm debating with myself whether I want to add detailing or not, which I do end up adding more detailing, both to the bottom of the dress, and I flip it around, you'll see in a sec, because I like tried to draw, and I'm like, no, and then I'm just like, I'll turn this upside down, and draw from there, because sometimes you have to look at it for a different angle. So I know this is really weird, but I do this sometimes when I'm doing a fill in the color. Which really what I should have done is I should have moved out the inside black lines because it was too much, but when I do the fill in a color, I will always usually suck it to another layer. Just because I like that better. I don't actually use that all that much because the style I do for shading doesn't really work with it. And usually you want to work section by section, which I kind of don't do here, which, you know, that's on me. But generally you want to do section by section, otherwise it just doesn't fit right. And it kind of makes sense the way I usually do it, though I didn't do it this time, because also I'll work up, like, if one thing's gonna be over top of that, like, usually I probably would have started with skin, and then I would have gone over with the dress, and then I would have built up from there, and I'd do it in layers, just because it makes it easier for shading and such. When I do coloring, I usually do 3 colors. I'll pick the main color, I'll pick a shade darker and a shade lighter. And what you'll see here is, because I'm using the blur tool, and that screws with the edges of the color, unless you do a little bit more than you're supposed to, which I always forget to do, is I'll add in a layer underneath that's white so it doesn't screw up, especially if I'm going to do just like a normal background, or if I'm going to do some sort of detailed background, which, I mean, by far I'm not the best at backgrounds, but you'll see me start to do shading and realize, oh no, this isn't working. It helps sometimes to do the details first, just because it's easier to figure out where shading goes. Again, I do that 3 colors, and I try not to, because I had my blur tool up, like, way too high for part of this. Just because I had it cranked up, and I, like, didn't realize till the end, like, oh no. But, so the lighter section's usually going to be where light's going to hit it, or it's going to be just in the middle, generally. So then shadow, or the darker color, is always going to be shadow, or it implies movement or something. That's what it is. That's where the light's specifically, like, opposite your light source. So you can have, like, a full-on light source, like you'll see in some people's pictures, they'll do, like, an outline, like there's this bright color of it on one side. But not everyone does that. I typically don't. I'll typically do this side is shadows and this side is not shadows, or something along those lines. Right now I'm just working on the ribbons and such. But you can kind of see where I did there, where I do base color, do the shadows, and then do a highlight. And that's more typically how I do it. Here I'm going back in and detailing the tiny maple leaf I made. This is me, see, because I mentioned I worked in layers. I end up, for a while, just messing around going, I don't like that. And then, yeah, because you can see I do it a couple times. Always layer check. Because sometimes you're not on the right layer, and you'll, like, programs like I'm working in, which is Sketchbook, you only have, like, you can change it, but you only have a certain limited number of times you can undo, and that's, if you haven't saved in a while, I'm really bad about that. You should always save. Always, periodically save. Because you never know when you're going to get screwed over by that. But I'm really bad about that, and I typically don't. Do as I say, not as I do. I typically don't save all that often, so always, if you're going to do what I do, is not advisable, but if you do end up, always check your layers, because sometimes you're on the wrong layer and then you screw something up. So, you'll see this is, I will advise for this. So, you'll see when I do white, I'll go bright white, and then I'll move it down so it's a gray, and then use the white as the highlight, and that's typically what I would advise always doing for white. Just because otherwise white's hard to fiddle with. And then I happen to have a skin tone color, but usually it's kind of like really light, kind of in the orange, I would almost say the orangish range. The orangish red range is where you kind of get that, and it has to be almost white, unless you're doing a character of color, in which case you will probably have to go search. I actually found a skin tone chart that I have been using off and on, but most of the characters I draw are not colored. Phrasing. Not of color, so they're just pasty white people. Because I'm a pasty white person, so I draw what I am. Because it's more comfortable and I can kind of tell shadows easier like that. I will occasionally venture and get adventurous. You can see that where I mentioned back then, watch your layers. I didn't, and I was on the layer, and I'll usually, occasionally, I'll always forget because I don't like doing the whole erasing thing with my colors, is I will do my 3 little dots. Usually I'll do that on a separate layer, but I forget to switch layers a lot, so. But you see I have the 3 to highlight the shadow and the middle tone, and it doesn't look like I'm actually doing much with the skin because I'm using such a light skin tone. And honestly, with this character, I probably could have used a darker skin tone, but I didn't feel like pulling in the shirt. You will occasionally see very confused motions for tools. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. You noticed I looked at my reference photo again to check color. Hair color can be a pain in the butt. So I will give this tip since, you know, I think one of the things someone will do a lot when they're drawing a character is draw themselves. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked because I'm onto the eyes now. So eyes I do two-tone, and then I get a darker color, where I see where the black dot would be, and I over top of everything, I'll do the white and the highlight of the eyes, but then I'll choose a darker shade for each of my 2 colors, and I will do a single line to do shadows on top and bottom, and then I will take a little bit lighter than the light color and do sections, and a little bit darker than the dark color to do sections. But back to my original topic. So when you're doing a strawberry blonde, I feel like I have to mention this because I have strawberry blonde hair, so I draw it a lot. I choose almost somewhere between yellow and orange. I do that as the base one, and then I will, with a thinner tool, put highlights of an actual, like, straight yellow. I might do a straight orange, and I do lines of red, and when you blur that, that gets it closer to a strawberry blonde. You'll also see, you know, I fixed the curl. I wasn't satisfied with it. Typically I do the 3 on the hair, but it's base color and shadow, and then I'll do a single highlight. You can see, like, the highlight goes around. But I used a couple more colors on this, and I also typically will take, like, the thinnest tool I have, which is that pencil tool, and I'll take an even darker color and then go through, which helps breaks up the solid colors a little bit, so it actually looks like separate strands of hair and gives it motion, but it also breaks up, like, the big chunk of highlight. So because I'm doing this for a specific thing, you'll see a couple times I go, and I figure it out, and I hate it, is what I'm doing here. This is for a specific piece that I'm doing, where I'm taking various characters from Hitalia, and I'm making them chess pieces. So in this, Maddie is the queen, and I'm trying to make the queen's crown, and I ended up settling on a different design for that. And it takes me a couple tries. So I get the crown all settled, and I move it over, and I fix the size, and you'll see me adjust it a couple times. So I add in the shadow, and then I get rid of the little hair that peeks through, which I really didn't have to do. I could have just added another layer on top and then do this white shading there, so it just covers it. I will say the one thing that I did end up forgetting to do that I went back and did later was I didn't add in blush. And you'll see at the end there, and I know the screen's blank, woohoo, that I added my artist signature. And I always, because I'm using this program, I save twice. I save as a TIFF file, which is with separate layers, and I save as a JPEG. Of course, you don't have to save as a JPEG. You can save as a PNG, but, you know, to each their own. But it's always best to have the TIFF file, you know, just in case. But that was me drawing Canada, and just some tips on how to draw. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. But as I said, if you have any questions, leave them down below. If you liked this video, leave a like maybe. Subscribe if you want more of this. Just generally give me feedback. You know, not the greatest channel, not the worst channel, just kind of starting out. But that's all, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.